you agree to a ceasefire?
Mr. President, what's your message to Vladimir Putin?
Mr. Putin, did you underestimate Ukraine? President Putin, will you stop killing civilians? President Putin, how can the U.S. trust your words?
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
Where are we going?
We gotta go to the vans on the side.
Hello, Robbie.
Yep. We're still holding for a minute? Okay. The driver's here, so.
For a bar with that?
We'll have to come down. We'll stay up until the motorcade leaves. Shot stays up for now.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States of America and the President of the Russian Federation.
Уважаемый господин президент,
Mr. President,
дамы и господа,
ladies and gentlemen,
наши переговоры
our negotiations have been held in a constructive atmosphere of mutual
были
respect.
весьма
We
обстоятельными
had
и
very
полезными.
thorough negotiations that were quite useful. I would like to thank once again my American counterpart for the proposal to travel out here to
Вполне
Alaska.
logично
It
встретиться
only
именно
makes sense
здесь,
that we've met
ведь
here,
наши страны,
because our
хоть нас
countries,
разделяют океаны,
though
на самом
separated by the
деле
oceans,
близкие
are
соседи.
close neighbors.
И когда мы встретились,
So when we've met,
вышли из самолетов, я так
when I
сказал,
came out of the plane and I've said,
добрый день, дорогой
good afternoon,
сосед,
dear
очень
neighbor.
приятно видеть вас
Very good to see you
в добром здравии
in good
и
health
живым.
and to see you
И
alive.
по-соседски это очень
I think that is very
звучит,
neighborly,
по-моему, по-доброму.
and I think that's some
Нас разделяет только
kind words
Берингов
that we can
пролив.
say
Да
to
и
each
то,
other.
там два
We're
острова
separated by the Strait of
между
Bering, though there are two islands
российским
only
и
between the Russian
американским
island
островом.
and
Всего
the
4
US island. They're
километра.
only 4
Мы
kilometers
близкие
apart.
соседи.
We're close neighbors,
Важно
and it's a
также, что
fact.
с Аляской связана
It's also
значительная
important
часть
that
общей
Alaska
истории
has to
России
do with our
и
common
США.
heritage,
Многие
common history between
позитивные
Russia and the
события.
US, and
Так,
many
здесь и
positive
по сей
events
день
have to do with that
сохраняется
territory.
огромное культурное
Still, there is
наследие
tremendous
после русской Америки.
cultural heritage back
Православные
from the Russian
храмы,
America. For example,
множество,
Orthodox
более
churches
700
and a lot of
названий,
more than
имеющих русское
700
происхождение.
geographical names of Russian
В
origin.
ходе Второй мировой войны
During
именно
the
на
Second World
Аляске
War, it was here
начиналась
in
легендарная
Alaska that was the
авиамагистраль
origin
для
of the
поставок
legendary
боевых
air bridge
самолетов
for
и
the
другой
supply of military
техники по
aircraft and
договору
other equipment
Ленд-Лиза.
under the Land-Lease
Это был
program.
опасный,
It was a
сложный
dangerous
маршрут
and treacherous
над
route
громадными ледяными
over the
пространствами.
vast
Но летчики и
emptiness
специалисты
of
двух
ice.
стран делали все,
However, the
чтобы
pilots of
приблизить
both
победу,
countries did everything
рисковали,
to bring closer the
отдавали
victory.
свои жизни
They
для
risked
общей
their
победы.
lives and
Вот
they
я
gave it all
сейчас
for the
только
common
что был
victory.
в городе Магадане,
I was
в
just
России, там
in the city of
памятник стоит
Magadan in Russia, and there was a
российским и
memorial there
американским
dedicated to the
летчикам
Russian
и
and the
флаг
US pilots.
российский
And
и
there are two flags, the
американский. Я знаю,
US
что
flag
и
and the Russian
здесь
flag. And I
тоже
know
есть
that here
такой
as
же
well,
памятник.
there
На
is
военном
such a
кладбище
memorial.
всего нескольких километрах отсюда
There is a military
захоронены
burial
советские
place
пилоты,
several kilometers away
погибшие
from
при
here.
выполнении
The Soviet pilots that buried there who died during that dangerous mission. We're thankful to the citizens and the government of the U.S. for carefully taking care of their memory. I think that's very worthy and noble. We'll always remember other historical examples when our countries defeated common enemies together in the spirit of battle camaraderie and allyship that supported each other and facilitated each other. I'm sure that this heritage will help us rebuild and foster mutually beneficial and equal ties at this new stage, even during the hardest
Как
conditions.
известно, российско-американские встречи в верхах не проводились более 4
Summits
лет.
between Russia and the US
Это
for
большой
4
срок.
years, and
Минувший
that's
период
a
был
long
очень
time.
непростым для двухсторонних
This time was very
отношений. И, скажем
hard for
прямо,
bilateral
они
relations, and
скатились
let's be
до самой
frank,
низкой
they've fallen
точки
to
со
the
времен
lowest
Холодной войны. И
point
это
since
не идет на
the Cold
пользу
War.
ни нашим
I think
странам,
that's
да, и
not
миру
benefiting
в
our
целом.
countries and the world as a
Очевидно,
whole.
что рано или
It is
поздно
apparent
нужно
that
было
sooner or
выправлять
later
ситуацию,
we had
переходить от
to amend the
конфронтации к
situation to move on
диалогу. И
from
в
the
этом плане
confrontation
личная
to
встреча
dialogue.
была в
And in
двух
this case, a
государств
personal
реально
meeting
назрела,
between the heads
конечно,
of state
с
has
условием
been long
серьезной и
overdue.
кропотливой
Naturally,
подготовки. И такая
under the
работа
condition of
в целом
serious and
была
painstaking work,
проделана.
and this
У
work
нас
has
с
been done in
президентом
general.
Трампом установились
Me and
очень
President
хорошие
Trump have
прямые
very good
контакты.
direct
Мы
contact.
неоднократно
We've
и
spoken
откровенно
multiple times. We spoke
разговаривали по
frankly
телефону.
on the phone.
К нам, как известно, в Россию несколько раз приезжал
And special envoy
президента США,
of
господин
the president, Mr. Witkoff,
Регулярно
traveled out to Russia
контактировали
several
наши
times.
помощники и главы
Our
внешнеполитических
advisors and
ведомств.
heads of foreign
Как
ministries
вы хорошо
kept in
знаете,
touch all the
понимаете, одним
time.
из
And you
центральных
know fully
вопросов
well that one of
стала
the
ситуация
central
вокруг
issues
Украины. Мы
was the
видим
situation
стремление
around
администрации
Ukraine.
США
We see the
и
strive of
лично
the
президента Трампа
administration and
содействовать
President Trump
разрешению
personally to
украинского
help
конфликта.
facilitate
Его
the
желание
resolution of
вникнуть
the
в
Ukrainian
суть
conflict
и
and his
понять
strive
его
to
историю.
get to the
Я не раз
crux of
говорил,
the
что
matter to
для
understand
России
its history
события на Украине
is
связаны с
precious.
фундаментальными
As I've
угрозами
said,
нашей национальной
the situation
безопасности.
in Ukraine
Более
has to do
того,
with
мы всегда
fundamental threats to
считали
our
и
security.
считаем
Moreover,
украинский
we've
народ,
always
я говорил об
considered
этом неоднократно,
the
братским,
Ukrainian
как
nation,
это ни
and I've said
странно
it multiple
прозвучит,
times, a
в
brotherly
сегодняшних
nation.
условиях.
However
У нас
strange it
одни
may
корни, и
sound
все
in these
происходит,
conditions.
и все
We have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us, a terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it. At the same time, we're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict, and we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we are prepared to work on that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress. Incidentally, when the new administration came to power, bilateral trade started to grow. It's still very symbolic. Still, we have a growth of 20%. As I've said, we have a lot of dimensions for joint work. It is clear that the U.S. and Russian investment and business cooperation has tremendous potential. Russia and the U.S. can offer each other so much in trade, digital, high-tech, and in space exploration. We see that Arctic cooperation is also very possible. And our international context, for example, between the Far East of Russia and the West Coast of the U.S. Overall, it's very important for our countries to turn the page, to go back to cooperation. It is symbolic that not far away from here, the border between Russia and the U.S., there is a so-called international date line. I think you can step over, literally, from yesterday into tomorrow. And I hope that we'll succeed in that. In political sphere, I would like to thank President Trump for our joint work, for the well-wishing and trustworthy tone of our conversation. It's important that both sides are result-oriented, and we see that the President of the U.S. has a very clear idea of what he would like to achieve. He sincerely cares about the prosperity of his nation. Still, he understands that Russia has its own national interests. I expect that today's agreements will be the starting point, not only for the solution of the Ukrainian issue, but also will help us bring back business-like and pragmatic relations between Russia and the U.S. And in the end, I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then that it's a big mistake. Today, when President Trump is saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, business-like and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. That was very profound. And I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Ratcliffe, thank you very much. But we have some of our really great leaders. They've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here, and I think everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time, and we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax. That made it a little bit tougher to deal with, but he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that during the course of his career. He's seen it all, but we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax, but what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But we'll have a good chance when this is over. So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good, productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So, again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.